Chilling tales for dark nights.
Good evening. I'm your host, Steve Taylor. What you're about to hear is a chapter from Waking Nightmare, a collaborative, interactive, serialized horror saga presented to you by Chilling Tales for Dark Nights. Each chapter of this series is written week by all of you, our listeners, and only you can tell us how the story unfolds. At the conclusion of today's chapter, those of you in the audience will be asked to help write the next chapter in the saga and to participate by posting it as a comment on this very video. After a week of voting, the chapter with the most upvotes will become canon and will be adapted to audio as the next official installment of the series. Without further ado, settle in, get cozy, and brace yourself. You're about to experience one-of-a-kind horror storytelling in the form of a waking nightmare.
Waking Nightmare, Chapter 2. Written by Jeanette Whitstein. Narrated by Dr. Creepen, and featuring Jason Hill and Olivia Steele. He stared at the burning city, and his heart ached for something ineffable. Something that he couldn't name, but which had been lost forever. His vision blurred with tears, and he made no motion to wipe them away as they dripped down his face.
You know that this isn't your first time.
He turned, dumbfounded, in the direction of the voice. A white dove sat on the rail of the ship.
What?
I said, this isn't your first time.
He gaped at the bird.
Am I dreaming?
Why does that even matter?
The man was silent.
You know full well that all this is your doing. You made all this.
The dove stated this as though it was stating the weather. The dove turned its head toward the burning city.
And you also destroyed it.
There was no accusation in its voice. The statement was completely matter of fact. He reached his hand forward, and the bird stepped calmly onto it.
What should I do?
You made this place. You're the architect of it. Only you know how to break the cycle and stop going through it over and over again.
But I can't remember anything.
Can't or won't.
A light, blinking sound became audible as something dropped onto the deck. The man turned to look at it. Even in the dim light, he recognized it. It was an empty orange pill bottle, the type they gave out at pharmacies. Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata began to play again. It soothed him.
I just need to sleep.
He said the words reflexively, out of habit, to no one in particular. The dove looked him up and down. He was aware of his wounds being assessed by the bird.
Don't sleep. Whatever you do, don't sleep. You need to be awake to get through this.
The man's fatigue weighed even harder on him. His eyes felt heavy, and he began to lean heavily on the railing. The sonata was helping him to relax. He let out a yelp as the bird's beak sliced into his hand.
I said, don't sleep.
The dove stared at him, its beak now wet with blood.
Do you really want to repeat what you just went through? With your demons?
The man grimaced and shook his head.
Then don't sleep.
Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata was gone. All that remained were the sounds of water lapping against the sides of the ship, and the throb of the fresh wound on his hand. The pain seemed to clear his head. The dove fluttered away from his hand to the railing, gave him one last look, and flew off into the night. The ship was approaching the shoreline. The smell of gasoline hung pungently in the air. The man shuddered at the thought of what he would find, but prepared to step off the boat.
Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm your host, Steve Taylor, and you've been listening to Waking Nightmare, a collaborative, interactive, serialized horror saga presented to you by Chilling Tales for Dark Nights. Who decides where the story goes next? You do. That's right, you. Every chapter of this story will be written by those of you in our listening audience, and every week, someone else has a chance to win. To submit the next chapter, simply write it and then submit it as a comment on this very video with the word chapter and the chapter number on your first line. The limit on the length of the YouTube comment is currently 9,500 characters, or about 1,866 words. To ensure your chapter is submitted successfully, be sure not to exceed these limits. If your comment posts successfully, you may consider your chapter accepted, and it will be considered for production and can be voted upon immediately by the viewing audience. Voting will go for 1 week, and after that point, the submission with the most upvotes will be declared the winner and will be adapted to audio as the next official chapter in the series. A word of caution: entries which have been edited after their initial posting will be deemed ineligible, so be sure to double-check your work before posting. If changes are needed after you've submitted your work, you will need to delete your original comment and repost it from scratch. And if your chapter doesn't turn heads 1 week, don't get discouraged. Each chapter will present another opportunity for you to determine where the story goes, and another chance to have your installment selected by the audience. Thank you all for listening and for participating in The Waking Nightmare. We look forward to seeing where you make this story go. Until next time, I'm your host, Steve Taylor, inviting you to turn off the lights and turn on the dark.
Chilling Tales for Dark Nights.